Hello guys, so I am going to try to do a very simple video on 2-needle applique. Though I will show you just a straight line of running stitch, and we'll start with that, and then I will go into 2-needle applique. But basically 2-needle applique, this is what we're going to need today. We're going to need your choice of at least 2 different colors of beads. I like to do a dark and a light together. I'm going to use a size 2mm pearl for the middle and a soft yellow to go around the pearl. And this is the way it's going to turn out, just like that. And I did 2 different kinds of leaves so you can see exactly how they would look. This is a felt board, and I like to use a felt board because it is stiff. You can use regular felt. It's just very soft and it's hard to maneuver very well. So we're going to use that. You'll need a piece of paper so you can draw out your design. You can draw it directly onto your felt board, but it will bleed. So we don't like that. So we don't want to do that. So what we're going to do, and we're going to be cutting this out. We're going to be drawing your design, cutting it out. You will need some scissors, some pliers, and you will need a small piece of leather. This is supposed to be brain tan. I can tell you that this is not really brain tan. This is commercially done, and then they felted it. So look out for that. If it stretches, it's not brain tan. If it doesn't stretch, then it's the correct brain tan. So, and then we're going to be using a size 12 beading needle. I use this brand. You don't have to. There's lots of different beading needles. These ones are short. They're not the longer ones. So we're going to be threading a couple of these. Okay, and then I use a size D beading thread. And I like to double my threads. So here, let's get started. First thing we're going to do is double our thread. We're going to get our needles out. 2 needles. And put one right there for a minute. 2 needles, and you will thread both your needles. And I like to just squeeze it and then pull it through. And at the very end, we will make a knot. We want them to be double threaded. This is how I do mine. I do not do a single thread because if your piece gets cut, you don't have anything holding things together. If it gets, one of the threads gets cut, then it will hold it together until you can see that you need to do a repair. So that's the way I like to do it. And we're going to be threading 2 of these. And I will show you a very quick tutorial on the running stitch, which is 1 needle. And then we'll go from there to the 2-needle applique. I feel like the running stitch is very, very easy. It's probably the best one to start off with. So you won't get frustrated and give up. So also, it's really great when you're doing designs or patterns. I find that I use it quite a bit. I do use the running stitch, 2-needle applique, and a little tiny bit of bead embroidery. So, okay, so we're going to put the thread up here. Okay, so you get your little piece of paper, and sometimes what I like to do is find a pencil or a pen. Here's a marker, and I will just use that round area to draw a circle. And then I will use like maybe the inside of the perimeter of the thread or something, so I can kind of draw those lines to figure out exactly where I want my design to go. Now this is just for reference. So you just like, okay, well that's where my pearl's gonna go, and then my other beads are gonna go around that. And then if I want to make more beads around that, you can. And then I'm going to, you know, go up to that point, and you just keep doing that. It doesn't have to be a perfect flower. Generally, what I try to do, if you want, you can actually print out a computer flower, and that will be more uniformed. So you can do that. And I just go ahead and do this just to know exactly where I want my flower to hit. And then I will do a diamond shaped leaf. The diamond shaped leaves are easier if you're starting out. Or you could do a leaf like this, and then you just put 1 bead, 3, and so on. But I like the diamond shaped ones because they to me are very pretty, and are easy for people to follow to see what I'm doing. Okay, so now that is done, I am going to go ahead, you know what, I'll take another top lid and I'll use that to do the perimeter so I can see where I want to go around the whole flower. And I'll go about there. It's probably not perfect. Just like I said, if you have a computer design, it'll probably fit perfect. And I will go all the way around. Okay, and there is what we want to do. And you can put your little piece inside. If you feel like that's too big, you can even get closer. I did the pin a certain way so it wouldn't get too close to the pattern, but you can get closer to the pattern if you like. That's what I'll do. Lids are great. Okay, so we will just put that there. And so you can see, okay, and I like to have a couple pairs of scissors. I know that's weird. This one is usually cut for thread, and I use it to cut fabric leather. This one is one that I've been just using for cutting the felt board and paper. So, and I will cut my pattern out where I want it to be. And I will just cut on the very outside line. Just to see how it looks. Do I like it? Okay, I think I do like it. And I will cut on that inside line now. It's better to be safe than sorry, so... Now, all of this drawing is just a reference of what you would like to see. It doesn't mean that it has to be exactly the same as that. And that's, okay, and then we'll just erase that. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut out my felt board. I'm going to go ahead and just cut a little square out about the perimeter of that. Okay. And I guess I can use my lid once more. I hate to draw on this. If you can, draw with a pencil instead, because this felt board will bleed and stuff, and it won't look, you know, if you use a pencil, it's easier. It's just easier. Okay, and then we will cut the felt board out. And you can get felt board anywhere. You can get it at Joann's, you can get it online, but just look for felt board and not just plain felt. Felt is fine, but it just is soft. And felt board has, like, you know, something more flat, and it keeps things flatter. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, you know, you're going to have leather. If your leather is like this, you might want to kind of clean it up a bit. You know, get some of the stuff off. And, you know, and you don't have to use animal hide. Some people don't want to do that, and that's fine. You don't have to. You can even use leather that is made from mushrooms. I've been hearing all about that. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead. Now, if you want to cut it out like that, you can. Or you could just glue it directly on. And I do use glue. You don't have to use this particular kind, but I like it because it's waterproof, and it is highly flammable, so you have to watch it. It's not something that should be around children, but I had a hairpiece, got completely soaked. This is the glue that I used. All I did was put it in partial sun, and it went right back to normal. I thought the hairpiece was destroyed. I thought it was done for, and I was very happily surprised that it didn't ruin it at all, because this glue kind of protected it. So I like that, and I don't have to put a whole lot on. I just kind of get it to where it's beads of glue on there. And, you know, you don't want to put tons and tons in it, or else it'll be hard for you to get your needle through there. And you should also have a very good thimble. The reason I put leather on my thimble, and you can have any thimble you want. I usually, this is all they had for thimbles, and I put a little hole at the end, but you can use metal thimbles or whatever thimbles. Make sure they're bigger than your finger, like way bigger, so you can add like a hide on the outside. And the reason I add a hide on the outside is because when you, okay, so here is your needle, right? So when you are pushing things through, sometimes the needle has a tendency to break the thread or cut the thread, and the hide helps it be more of a cushion, so it won't break the thread or fray it, and it's very helpful. So that's why I do that. So, but you don't have to do it the way I do it. Now you see, I usually use the other scissors for that, but you know, these scissors are great. I like them. Because I don't have to just use them for one thing. Okay, so there we go. There is our hide, and we're going to save this. Maybe I can get a little pair of earrings out of that. That's kind of nice. Don't waste anything. Okay, so now we have our hide, and we have our little piece. Now you see it's a little bit off. That's fine. We just want to make sure we can center it where we want it. Okay, and then you take your needle and you would go up through the piece, and here we are. I'm starting you off with the 2 needle, right? So we're just going to start off with just tacking this down first, and then I will show you the running stitch. And you're going to come up through the middle, and this is another reason why I like to have pliers, because sometimes, like this is not really brain tan moose hide. Whoever made this, I think what they did was they they just put a little smoke on it and sold it as brain tan, but it's not traditionally brain tan. Brain tan does not stretch, and it's more like a felt. So, whoops, okay. Well, we lost one of the beads. All right, well, that's okay. We just need one. We just need one. And this is a 2mm bead. Or is it a 3? It might be a 3. And we're just going to tack that down. Make sure it's exactly where you want it to be, to the middle. And this will keep things in place. Oops. string does get, you know, tied up sometimes. You just got to be patient. Okay, so now we're going to put this aside for a minute because we've got it tacked down. We're going to do the 2 needle applique with that one, but I wanted to show you the running stitch really fast. So basically what the running stitch is you're using 1 needle, and we're just going to do a line so you know, and you come up through your piece. I'm doing this just on a piece of felt board, and you know what, I will use some darker beads because I know that this will be easier for you to see, because if I do light on light it's going to be hard. Okay, so basically your running stitch, you start with 1 needle, pull these aside, and we put 4 beads onto your needle, 4 beads. And so there's 4 beads. Okay, you're gonna butt that up to the end of your thread, right there where you came out. You're going to go down in front of those beads that you want to tack down. Okay, and so you have 4 beads tacked down. You're going to come back up between the 4 beads, okay, with your needle, and you're going to go out those 2 beads. And you're just going to keep following that same thing. You're going to pull it tight, and you're going to put 4 more on, and you're just going to keep doing that. You're going to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. 4 more beads, and you can hold it down with your finger. Tack those 4 beads down wherever you want them to lay. Okay, and then you're going to take your needle and you're going to come back up between the 2, and you just continue this just like that, and you're going to take your needle through those 2 end beads. Now if it gets tangled, just pull it back out. Okay, and you're going to tighten it, and that is what we call the running stitch. Okay, you're going to do it again I'm just going to do it a couple more times so you understand. 4 beads on, 4 beads, push them all the way down to where you want your beads to hit. Okay, you can hold them there with your thumb if you like. I do, and then I'm going to put my needle through the piece of felt board, run it through. I'm going to come up between the 2 beads, or between the 4 beads, and go out the 2. Okay, and then I'm going to pull tight again. And so there is your running stitch. And this is what it should look like on the other end. It's not the perfect line. I didn't do a very perfect line, but that's what it looks like, folks. Okay, so now that you know what the running stitch is, and you know, you would come back down and tie on the other end. I'm sorry. But now you know what it is, and that's kind of what I wanted to start you off with, so you understand what it is. Now, you can see that it's a little harder to get out. But I'm going to take it out just because, well, and maybe I should show you 2 needle applique on here really quick before we start doing petals, because maybe you need to have a better understanding of how 2 needle applique works as well. Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll do the 2 needle applique. You have 2 needles. You start off with your 1. Okay, and we'll go up through the piece with 1 needle. You're gonna go ahead and put as many beads as you like on. This one you don't have to put 4 at a time. This one you can put a whole bunch of beads. Okay, and that's what we'll do. We'll just put a whole bunch of beads on, and we will lay them flat, nice and flat. Now, the thing about 2 needle applique is you got to remember that the second needle is going to be tacking down every 2. So if you want it to not be so tight, pull your string, and you can even do this with your needle just to check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so then you would tack down right there. Okay, you go through your piece. Now, this needle that you put your beads on with, go ahead, wrap it around your finger and pull it to the side. Okay, now take your second needle and you're going to go from the beginning where you went in from. So you're going to go between those 2 beads, you're going to come up through the back, and you're going to go through, you're going to stitch down those 2 beads. And you're going to continue that. And you're going to stitch down the next 2 beads. And in the meantime, you want to keep this away so it doesn't get tangled up with the other thread. Okay? And this is what you're doing. You're just putting a stitch between every 2 beads. Now, when I'm working with a size 15, I will do 2 to 3 beads every 2 to 3 beads. If you do any more than that, it's considered the lazy stitch. And that's actually what the stitch is called, the lazy stitch, because a lot of people will do the lazy stitch. It's fine, but you know, we do that for certain things, not for everything. Okay, so there we go. You are just stitching down every 2 beads. But remember, when you're stitching down, your string is going to take a little space. So if you put too many beads on and then tack it down and try to stitch between them, it will gather up and it will not create the nice even straight line that you want. So that's how we do the 2 needle applique. Now I'm going to show you what I do, and then you just basically tie a knot in the back, and I do a couple times, and I will pull it all the way down, put my finger on top, and tie it off. Make a new knot in your needle. Okay, and I'm trying to be as simple as I can because I tend to think too big, and I forget that everybody doesn't do the same things I do. I'm sorry. So I'm going to start you off with my simple way of doing things, and so you can understand. So when I bring you into a project, you won't be so, you can go to the reference. But that's how I do 2 needle applique. You can see that it's a little bit stronger and it's a little bit thicker and straighter, actually. Okay, so we'll put that aside. And this is what we're going to be working on right now. We're going to start with the middle section of that flower. And here we go. Here is the thread. Now we just did 1 bead, which I consider bead embroidery. We're just putting 1 bead there, and we're going to take the same needle and we're going to go back up on the side of that 1 bead, and we're going to pull through. Now we're going to fit some beads around that, and we're going to get the color we want to put around that area. And this is the little area that we're talking about right here. Those yellow beads around that pearl. Okay, and if you're starting out, you don't have to start on leather. You can just do it on the felt board and the paper, and then just cut this out as a shaped piece. it might be easier. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to throw some beads on there on the needle, and we're going to see how many beads we need, with keeping in mind that the string is going to go between each two beads. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap that around. You can hold it down with your thumb if you like, and you can see that it's exactly perfect. So how many beads do we have on there for this little pearl? This little pearl is like a 2 or a 3. It's probably 2, 3. So we got about 7 beads. And now we're going to go ahead, get it buttoned up, and I like to hold mine down with my thumb. And then I'm going to go through those 2 end beads, just 2. See, right there, just 2. And I'm pulling it out. Okay, and I'm just going to make sure it's all nice and tight before I put the needle through the piece to stitch it down. Now I'm just going to be using this one needle because this is a little bit of bead embroidery. I told everybody that I would do that. If you want to use 2 needle applique, 2 needles for that little tiny piece, you can. I don't choose to. I'm sorry. Then you're going to come up through your next 2. So we have a stitch. We have a stitch right there. And I jump to this 2. And I'm going to stitch these 2 down and then these 2. Okay? And that's what we're going to be doing there. Stitch those 2 down. Oops. And these 2. And that will be your center. This is a little bit of bead embroidery. You don't have to do it like this. You can do it with the 2 needles if you like. But this is just for the center of the flower. It's not a larger area. So now we can put this yellow away. And we're going to go ahead and start with the outline of the flower. I like to do the outline and then fill it in. Now on some flowers you would start with the center and fill it in, or the center and then go outline the centerpiece. So, but I don't, this flower we're just doing the outline and then filling it in. So now I'm going to bring my needle where I want it to go, and usually what I do is I will put my needle on the inside area of the line. Inside of the line. And each petal you're going to have to figure out how many beads you want, because this is going to be those things that you want to count. If you want your piece to be symmetrical, you count them. If you're not doing a very symmetrical piece and you want more flow in your flower, you're not going to have to count them. You can see I did that here. Okay, so but this is just the regular flower and with the regular same size petals. And so we're just going to go ahead and put a whole bunch of beads on this one thread, and I'm just going to fill it up. I'm just going to fill it up with beads, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to see what we need. So we have our beads here, and we're just going to kind of roll it around to see what we need. And I can see I just need maybe one more bead. And let's see, because we want to make sure that we leave 1 bead less. 1 bead less, because guess what? You're putting that string through your beads, right? So 1 bead less. So as you tighten it, you can see that's 1 bead less. Okay, and it should go all the way around. Now let's see, how many beads do we have on there, by the way? There's 5, 10, 15, and 20. So we're basically using 20 beads. And so that's what we're going to want to do with each one of these petals, 20 beads for each petal. I don't know if you can see it. 20 beads for each petal. Okay, we're going to put the thread, the needle through the piece at the very beginning there, and we're just going to slowly pull it through. Now this end is where your thread is going down. Okay, so you want to start your tack down on the end that the thread is not going. So start it on this side of your thread, the opposite side of where you're tacking your thread down into the piece. So you will take our other needle, and like I said before, I like to roll the thread around, not to cut off the circulation, don't cut, just to keep the needle and the thread away. And this is the side we don't want to start from. This is the side where we began, so that's where we want to start. And we're going to do every 2 beads. Okay, now you can see this. This is why you might need pliers if you have leather that is tough like this. Okay, every 2 beads. And you just kind of want to, you know, gently pop your needle up there. Don't poke yourself to death. If you feel like you need more than 1 thimble, then, you know, do so. But, okay, we are just doing every 2. Every 2. I don't know if you can see that. It seems like my camera always goes off in a different direction, so hopefully you can see this. I keep having to start this tutorial over and over again because my camera doesn't want to focus on where it should, and I've got it right there in front of everybody, but it just doesn't like to do stuff. So we're just doing every 2 beads. And we're following that line. You see, we're following the line that you kind of drew. It helps to keep your beads on where you want them to be, and for you to see the design where you may need to put your needle next. It's very helpful. And like I said, you can always have a computer design. It is more symmetrical, and it may give you a more perfect area. So and we are doing every 2 beads. Let's see. Now we're getting up there, and if it gets tight, then you will have to remove 1 bead. And that's why we don't want to start from this area. We want to start from the beginning. Okay, and I think we're good. I don't think we have to remove a bead. Isn't that wonderful? So basically, you're going to be doing the same thing I just did, and you're going to do it all the way around, okay? All the way around, just like that. And we're going to, now, I like to switch needles, okay? What does that mean? So this needle was the needle that I used to put the beads on with. That's the original needle I put the beads on with. But now I want to use it as the tack down needle because I want each petal to be switched out, the needles to be switched out, because what happens if I don't do that? I mean, it will be just the same, but if you get a cut into your piece, one of your threads, the whole thing will come undone. The whole thing and all your work will scatter. All your beads will fall off. They will just the whole thing will come undone. Just like a row of dominoes. When you push it, the whole thing comes undone. instead of putting a thing in between each, so you can repair the little area that did come undone. So that's why I switch my needles every petal. Okay, so so this needle was the put on needle. This is the tack down needle. So now this tack down needle is going to be the new needle for putting on the beads. Okay, and I do this every petal. Every petal I will switch out the needle or switch them. If a cut does happen, you can just repair that one petal instead of the whole thing coming undone. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to continue this. I'm going to put my 20 beads on, 5, 10, because we determined that we need 20 beads. 15 and 20. Now, if your beads are not very uniform, you may have to figure out how many beads per each petal, because there's not all beads are considered equal. These are pretty uniformed beads, but I have beads that are not very uniformed. They sometimes will be a little thin bead in there or something like that, and you may need to either look for all beads that are more uniformed, or you will need to do a variation on your petals. Like maybe you might have to put 18 on here instead of 20, or 19 instead of 20, or 22 instead of 20. So as long as they are around about the same size, if you have beads that are not as uniformed, you know, that's okay. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting this on the inside of the line. And another reason I put this on the inside of the line is because beads are fat. And if you're working with a very, you know, more intricate design, you may need to find a Sharpie marker. Now this is a fine point. And if you do use a fine point, make sure you put your beads on the inside of that. It's either going to be on the inside of your marker or the outside. If you do the outside and you have other, it'll butt up and pull, so you can't get your other petals in there. So you need to put it on the inside of the mark. So on the inside between this and this, instead of right here or right directly on, because then you won't be able to get your other beads next to it very nicely. Okay, so there's another tip. Okay, and we're just going to continue. I'm going to take, this is your new needle for putting the beads on, and then I just wrap it around my finger and keep it to one side of me, and this one I keep to the other side as I'm tacking down. So this needle is going to come up between those two beads, and you can see it needs to be pretty close to the other bead area, so you want to keep it inside of that bead line because your beads are fat, unless they're not fat and you're working with a size 15 or something. These are regular size 11 beads. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that before. So we're just working with regular size 11s. I did forget something. I knew I was going to forget something. Sorry, guys. I am a little bit scatterbrained. I admit it, okay? I do have a multitude of brain farts. I don't know. Anyways, so I use regular size 11s. These are opaque, and these are opaque luster. These are also opaque luster. There's all kinds of different beads. These ones are opaque, but these ones are not opaque. These ones are Salon. Salon is a kind of semi-translucent bead, and these are luster, because when they're shiny, they're luster. If these ones, here we go, here is an opaque bead that is matte. Okay, they're not shiny, they're just matte. It's like, you know, frosted glass, basically. Okay, so there are all kinds of different beads. Have fun. I would stick with one size at a time to get used to the different sizes, and then you can kind of experiment here and there, and that will lead you into all kinds of fun directions. Okay, right now we are just concentrating on tacking every 2 beads down right here, following that line that we put there for ourselves to use as a guide, you know. Okay, every 2 beads. Now this is, now if you were doing this with a regular felt, it would be super soft. You can see there's some stiffness to there, and that is very helpful for when I'm tacking things down, because when it's too soft, then it's hard to, you know, do that. And watch your needle on the back side, because sometimes it will get, you know, tangled up. So, and it should create each petal, your thread should create each petal on the other side too, so you can see the design. All right, and we will just keep doing that. Now I'm going to get through this petal, and you can see that if you're using leather, it does get kind of sticky. See, this is what I mean. This is fake brain tan, because real brain tan, it wouldn't be this hard to get through the leather. If you don't want to do it with leather, you can also do it with other things. You know, like sometimes I will use a ultraflex pleather, and I'll show you here. Okay, this is the last bead. Now it is a little bit tight. Will I need to take a bead out? Let's see. Not necessarily, but you can see it's just a tiny bit tight, and it's up to you. Okay, so now we're going to put this down and we're going to finish that, but I want to show you, now this is an ultraflex pleather. It's a dark fabric, and I glued it to my thing. Now what is ultraflex pleather? It is a fabric that is a pleather on one side, and the ultraflex means it has cotton and leather granules sprayed on the other side. Now you can use regular pleather as well. I sometimes will. This is a regular pleather. It is a fabric. You can see it's a fabric. It's just a thin fabric. I put my felt board on before I do my patterns. Where is my pattern? Oops. Oh, well. Okay, so here we go. So sometimes I will just draw out my patterns with a marker, and I did mine with a fine tip marker, and the reason I used a fine tip marker is because I use a size 15 on patterns like that. But you can see that you can do all kinds of different, you can experiment with all kinds of different stuff. Doesn't have to all be the same. You know, you can have a lot of fun. Here's some other ones. So now these beads I did not have to count. Okay, I did not count these beads because this has more flow. It doesn't have to, as long as your petals don't look too wonky. I like a little bit of flow in my petals. Now these are the buttercups that we have here in Alaska, and as you can see, when I'm doing bees or any kind of animal, I will use a size 15 just to give it that extra detail, and I use gemstone beads. And as far as this goes, which I will start some of these different things, and I might make some scissor cases and show you how I do some of the rhinestone stuff that goes around them, and they do come in spools. And you can get these on Amazon. And I keep forgetting what they're called again, but they do have these on Amazon. I would look for like gemstone fringe. You could look up just, you know, basic names to find it. And then I also like to buy these beads, which are mother of pearl. And I used to get freshwater pearls, but they don't have the flat ones that I like anymore. So I just buy mother of pearl. And then when I'm done beading all of my piece, I just pull the paper away. Anyways, I wanted to show you those. Now this flower, and you notice how we're doing our petals here, and I will show you the difference when we start to fill in. These are two different fills. So this fill, I'm going across the opposite direction. This fill, I am following the line. And I will show you that when I finish this right here, and I will be back. Okay guys, we're back. And we have all of the petals done, and most of these petals are 20. There might be one that's not, I'm not sure. Anyways, and then I did cheat a little. You don't have to do every 2 beads. You can do every 3 if you want. I guess it depends on how your design is. If it's just a simple design, you could do every 3 beads. If there's a lot of up and down curves where you're going and making tighter curves, then you might want to do every 2. So anyways, we're going to put these away, and we will start with the powder, the light opaque powder blue color. You can get any blue you want. You don't have to use these ones. These are size 11 opaque light blue luster, and these were I don't know the exact color, but I'm going to say a slate blue, an opaque slate blue luster. Okay, you can get any blue or colors. You could do purple, pinks, whatever. Anyways, I like to do the 2 different colors so people can see it, especially if someone's colorblind, like my father was colorblind, so he would need 2 separate colors to see the contrast. So okay, so now we're going to start with the inside of the petal. Now, not all of the beads inside of the petal are going to be exact for each petal, unfortunately, unless you have a computer design and your beads are extremely excuse me, uniformed. So we will see what we need to do, and we're just going to pull our needle back up. Now if you want, you could even put a little thing here, like a darker blue, even a very, very dark blue, 1 bead there, 1 bead there, or maybe a row. Or some people, I mean, flowers are endless. You can do anything with them. So, but we're just going to do regular. So it looks just like this one. And you can see that on some of these, they don't have all the beads, you know, because some of the beads were just a little bit off. They weren't as uniformed as I'd like, but that's okay. As long as your beadwork is pretty sound, people will like it anyway and, you know, support you. So we're just going to put a bunch of beads on like we did before to see what we need for the inside of this petal. And you're basically just following the line on the petal. And you can see that it kind of lines up like that. Do we need to take one bead off? Okay. Now on the inside of the petals, usually it's really tight on the inside. So you can do every 3 beads to tack down. Sometimes I do. And this one I will, but you don't have to. If you take a bead off, like I said, you can do every 2, and it's using less beads. So we're gonna go down where we started. I don't know if you can see that. So we've got this lined up inside of here. See? And we're gonna go down where we ended. Okay, and this is the needle that we are putting, whoopsies, that we are putting the bead on with. Okay, and now we're going to pull this aside, and we're going to pull this over here and wrap it around our finger to get it out of the way. And remember, this side is the side that we want to stay away from. This side is where we began, so that's the beginning tack down side. So I'm going to go ahead and do every 3 beads, but you can do every 2 if you like. On the inside of the flower, it's one of those things where you have to be a little bit more careful to where they are not so tight and they don't pop up. The beads will pop up if it is too tight. So you can see, and this is another thing, is beading is challenging because you will be contending with thread that wants to tangle up and not go in the area that you want it to go, and you'll have to have some patience. This is a great way to build patience. Okay, so I got the one tack down there. The next tack down is going to be right there. And you pull your bead up through that place. Tack it down. And this is what we're doing all the way around the piece. It's just a repeat of your 2 needle applique. But I am just showing you to give you hints and see how it will do this on the other side. So you want to make sure that you untangle any tangles. Okay. And just be gentle with your thread. I know it can be frustrating, but if you're gentle with your thread, you can get almost any tangle out. So you just slowly pull it through. Now see, it did tangle and you wouldn't notice that before. Okay. And I'm going to go to the next, to the other 3rd bead instead of the 2nd bead, because I'm doing every 3 on this. But you can do every 2. It does not have to be the way I want it. Okay, so now I've got the inside, and I'm going to be doing the next row. So that's what you're going to be doing all the way around your inside beads, and I'm going to show you the next inside row, and you're basically just going to come up right there because you're going to leave a little bit of room for your beads, okay, because they are fat. And so you have to make sure they kind of fit in. And so you're just going to put a string of beads on there before. Okay, and you're just going to see how many beads you actually need in the inside of that. And it can be tricky. Like, I know I'm not going to need that many beads, so I'm going to pull some of them off. Now, if you find this way is too tricky, you can also just do 1 bead, 2 beads, and 3 beads and go the opposite direction. And that is also helpful. And I will, okay, so that's as many beads as we're going to need, I think. Hopefully I'm right on that. Okay. can see how they get. Okay. And on this, I'll do every 2 beads because the beads are okay. Now, it looks like I could fit maybe another one in there. But the question you got to ask yourself is, how tight is that going to be if I try to get another bead in there? Can I get another bead in there? And you might be able to. I might do it. It might be a little bit tighter though. So what I say is, if you see that you can, pull your needle back through gently, okay? Make sure those original 2 beads are down. And then find a thinner bead. Look for a thinner bead that might work. And so basically you're just looking for a thinner bead, and because you're going to end up, it's going to end up being a little bit tighter than, if it's too tight, then scrap, don't do the extra bead. But you can see I'm going to go ahead and put that extra bead in there, which will make it a little bit tighter. So, and I will do 2 beads, every 2 beads on this. If it's tighter, you definitely want to do every 2 beads so nothing pops up and out. Okay, and if you have a tiny little gap in the center of your piece, because sometimes you'll be able to put a little center bead there, but this one is really tight. So we're going to look for something very, very thin, like your thinnest bead that you can find. And that's another great thing about sometimes not having everything so uniformed as well. This one looks pretty thin. I don't know if it's thin enough. And you're just going to put 1 bead on the very center, and it will push out the other beads. So we're going to see how that's going to work. Because you see it's going to be very tight. See how tight that is? There you go. If it leaves a little bit of a gap down there, don't stress. You might be able to actually add a bead in between that little gap. And I might have to add a couple beads actually. So, and that's where your bead embroidery comes in. Normally you wouldn't have to, but I did add an extra bead, and I did put my string in the wrong place. Obviously, I should have started at the very beginning there. And that's okay. So what I will do is I'll come up between those 2 beads to fix this, and I'll go through one of those and then add a small bead and then come back down. And there you go. And I can do the same thing right here as well. Come up. So if you feel like you can add more in there, make sure you do it with the beads and not against them, because it will look funny. Okay, and then here we are with a little bit of a tangle. That's okay. Sometimes it will. Okay, so then we can add another bead. But if you do have to do a fix like that, just remember to go with the beads, not against them, with them. And that way it won't look bad. So we will go down again. And you will. Now maybe I could do 2 right there instead of just 1. So if you feel like you can add in 2 extra beads, whoopsies, pull that back through carefully, add 2 extra beads. Sometimes your beads will move around, especially the outside petal. If it moves around a little bit because you did make it a little tighter by adding that middle bead, That's what will happen. But basically you're going to do this all the way around. Okay, and I'm going to put this aside for a minute because I want to shorten this tutorial just a little bit. And we will get 2 different colors of your green because I'm going to show you the leaf really quick, and then you can do the rest on your own. I'm pretty sure now that I've given you a little bit more confidence on how to do that and even how to fix some of the things that would happen. So, because sometimes things do happen. And if you want your piece to look right, make sure that you do it correctly. Like how I did that fix correctly. So you go through the beads so that way it doesn't look all funky. Okay, so now we're going to go do, I'm just going to do one kind of leaf, and if you see me on some of my other tutorials or you want to join me on some of the other beadwork I do, some of the tips and tricks that I have for certain kinds of things that I do during my 2-needle applique beading or running stitch or in bead embroidery or any of that, you'll see some of the tips and tricks that I do. So right now, this is one fun way to do a leaf. And I'm just going to basically pull my needle to that point. And I'm going to start off with my darkest color. And I'm going to do, I don't know, I'm going to put a row of beads on there. And I'm going to pull it out to about right there. That looks good. It's at the very, it's not quite on the tip. It's underneath the tip. And if you want to do a smaller one, you know what, I'll do a smaller one. There we go. It's underneath the tip, well underneath the tip. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, and now I am just going to go through with this same needle. Okay, and we're just bringing that needle down. And with this same needle, I'm going to go back up through the bottom of the area again, just like that. So it should look a lot like that. Then I'm going to go through my end bead. Okay, and I'm just using this one needle just right now, and then I'm going to count the inside beads. So I'm not going to count this end bead. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm not going to count the very last bead. So we're going to put 5 beads on. Okay, so I got 5 beads on, and we're going to go up through the end bead right there, very tip of the bead, the tip of the the leaf. Okay, so we went through the tip of this, we went through that one bead. Okay, now I'm going to take this needle, I'm going to put it aside, roll it up in my finger like I usually do, and I am going to go ahead and tack down every 2 beads on each side. Now, which side did we start? We ended on that side. So we're gonna, so if we ended on that side, because you want to make sure it's on the other side. There we go. Because this is the side that we want to, not this side that we ended on. The beginning side is where we want to start doing our tack down. Just so you know that, okay? And we're going to do the every 2 beads. And at first I'll do 3 because that's already tacked down, but those 2 aren't. So we're going to tack that down. Now, like I said, if you don't want to do every 2, you can do every 3. It's okay. As long as you have it tacked down nicely and it's going to stay there. I'm doing every 2 on the leaves. Okay. And we're just tacking every 2 down right there. Okay, and now I'm going to switch sides. And I'm going to start from the bottom again and tack down every 2. because we ended at the top. And so if I have to take something out, I can still do that. Do you see how that works? Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. And I'm basically just using this line as a visual, but it does not have to stay on the line. If you're making your leaf a little smaller, that is fine. I try to get it next to the petal as far as I can get it next to the petal. But this is just for your reference, just so you know how I do this. Every 2 beads. There we go. Okay, so now we're done with that part. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is the tack down needle I'm going to put aside. And now I'm going to go back up through the bottom part of this. And this is a pretty small leaf, so it doesn't have a whole lot of room for the other color on the inside. So I'm going to take a different color. And you can go across 1, 2, 1, or you can go all the way down with just those 3 beads or 4 beads, however you want. And I think I am just going to go ahead and put, actually I'm just going to do 3 beads. Now it's up to you whether or not you want to tack them down. You know, here we have a little bit of a tangle. There we go. Undo your tangle. And there is your leaf. Okay, and I'll do another one over here so you can see the difference between, well, here, maybe I'll show you right here. So right here, instead of just putting 3 up and down, I just put 1, and then I put 2 the other direction, and 1. So that's a bit of bead embroidery, and I did it on the same, but I used the same color on this side. So you can see how that works out. But anyways, so that's what you're going to be doing for all of your petals. And you won't always be able to put the center piece in there. You can see on here that I was not always able to stick more beads in there. So it's important. And then some of these petals, if you want to just do the outer rim and then just go across with beads, you can do that too. I don't know if you saw that. Maybe I'll show you really quick what I mean by that. And we will go back to a petal. And I will show you really quick what I mean by that before I sign off with you. Okay, and we're just putting beads on here because we're doing the inside of the outline, right? Inside of the petal, and we're going to see how many beads we actually need. I'll do that many. And take that string, put it aside like I did before. And now we're going to make sure that it's not this end, but it's this end that you start the tack down with. Remember to start with the beginning of your thread and not the end of your thread. And right now I am just putting every 3, I am just doing every 3 to tack down, just to give you an idea. Because we're just going to do this quickly so you can see. Now when I do tutorial pieces like this, I usually don't donate them afterwards because they are a little different. They're not like the regular pieces that I would do if I'm doing the same thing the whole way around. So, you know, and that way everybody gets to have a little fun. So, or a little something. Okay. All right. Okay, so here we are, and this is what I'm talking about when I say the opposite direction instead of going in like that. I don't really have a whole lot of room in here. So what I do is I start from the bottom right there, and I will put a bead sideways. And this is a little bit of bead embroidery, and I will put a bead sideways, just like that. And then I will put 2 beads in there, sideways, to fill in that gap. And a lot of people like to do this better because it fills in more, and you're not always going to have to do any kind of extra repairing fill or fill repair or anything like that. And then at the very top, I will just put 1 bead again, but I will do it up and down. So you're basically just filling that space doing bead embroidery, and that's what this is. So you can see how that turned out, and it's just as pretty, and it doesn't push out the beads or anything like that. So you can do it either way, and same on the leaf. You can do it either way. So hopefully you could see how I did that. I will check my video to make sure everybody can see exactly how I did that. And as far as beading needles go, if you're working with leather, now this is just a regular size 12 beading needle. And the reason I use a 12 is because sometimes it will fit into a 15. And most beading needles that are size 15 are long. And I will show you the difference really quick. Okay, so this one is not the one we want to look at. Okay, so this is a, let's see, I have so many. Okay, here is a regular size 15 beading needle. Now these are not good for 2 needle applique. They are very thin and they break very, very easy. And you can see, I don't know if you can see very well, but you can see that they are very long. And I will try to see how long they are. Very long. Okay, and these are very, very thin. And you can see that they are pretty frail. So we don't want to use that for 2 needle applique. These are better for using on special projects, like very small size 15 beads on a bracelet, a necklace, earrings. That's what those are great for. That's why I use a size 12, because my size 12 needle, and here is a size 15 bead. Now, if you look for beads that have bigger holes in the middle of them, and these are just regular, see, they will fit on there. So that's why I use a size 12, because they will also fit on the size 15 beads. There are other size needles. Now, these are the 10s. Okay. Which ones are these? These are my regular 12s. Here is a size 10. Now these needles, when you're going through leather, these ones have a tri-point. And these are size 10. And they will go through some beads. Okay, these are great for size 11s, but your 11 beads have to have a pretty big hole. And you can see that there is a tri-tip there, and they are very good for leather. I genuinely use these for when I'm doing very tough projects. Usually I would use it for something like this because you can see it just is like a knife and it goes right through the leather. And so if you have bigger beads like this size 11, just make sure that when you, it has a big enough hole. Now they do, they all went through. So test out your needle and make sure your beads are going to go all the way out your needle. Anyways, and these are a size 10, and they have the tri-tip, and they also come in other sizes. So when you get ready to bead around your piece, just a regular trim, and I will probably do a trim on the next tutorial. You would bead something with this when you are putting your pieces, sandwiching your pieces together and sewing them together. And what I tell people is sew it first and then add your beads on there, because sometimes certain kinds of beads will cut the thread. So these ones I sewed all the way around, and then I added the beads underneath the thread instead, and that way it is more helpful. Now so if you're doing a lot of sewing, now these won't go through. Okay, you can see that's a size 11. It's not going to go through. That's a size 11 bead. These are a size 6, and they are also a tri-point. These are leather needles that and you can get them from the same company. I don't think that's the real price anymore. I think the real price is different now. These were the old prices. This last year everything went up. And then these are the biggest ones, and the label fell off. So I am guessing that these were a size either 4 or 2, because the smaller the number, the bigger the size. And these are also leather needles, but these leather needles would be used to do putting together slippers or some heavy duty leather piece that you're going to be working on. Okay, and that's pretty much what I have for the needles. I want to make sure I got most of everything. I will show you how to put the project together next time, and I will show you how to do the trim on these next time. I try not to make the videos too long. It can get drawn out. So anyways, now you know different ways that you can do this, and the leaves and the petals. And it's very nice to be able to... Okay, whoops, I forgot to tell you how to remove the paper. I'm sorry, guys. But basically, when you're done with your whole design, and I can just remove it now. You don't have to have it on there after you have all of the outline done on your design. You can remove it then too. Is you're just going to pull it away from your beads. And you can see I'm just pulling the paper lightly away from the beads. Let me just toss the paper. But you can see that I'm just pulling it away from the beads. And as time goes by too, your paper will, you know, wear off too as well. But we're just going to pull it away from the beads. And I like to use a giant needle. Now you can get these giant needles from Joann's or wherever, or you can use your pliers, and which I like to do too, and get all those little extra scrappy pieces of, you know, or you could use your needle. Just be careful not to hit any of your string while doing this. And you can just pull away your paper. And if you want to just do the outline and then pull the paper out of the outline too, you can. It doesn't have to be there. It's just for reference, so you know where you want to put your main beads. But yeah, so I just take this needle and pull that paper away from the piece. And it's sharp, but it's not so sharp that it's going to like poke through or anything. It's a big needle. But if you don't want to use that, you don't have to. The paper will wear away eventually, you know. It just wears. And that's basically what I'm doing, is getting rid of all of the loose paper around. And you can see how I did that, because a lot of people are like, well, what do you do when your paper is there still? So I forgot to tell you. So I'm back. So I'm sorry. I told you I was a little bit scrambled in the brain. Okay, so, you know, my multitude of brain fart moments. Okay, so, yeah, and you can just pull it all away. Pull the outside. You don't have to. You can just fill it in and then pull it away. It doesn't have to be perfect. But you can see how you just pull the paper away. It's just there basically for reference. If there's a little piece of paper left in there, it's okay. You can beat it on top of it. I just wanted to show you that it's just something that you pull away. Anyways, and then when you're done with your outline, and you can cut that out. Now on this one, I didn't put a fabric or leather backing on it, so I am basically just going to be cutting out around it very carefully. And usually I like to start cutting from the back, so I know not to touch any of those threads. So I kind of know. So, but if you do it from the front, stay at least a tiny bit away from the beads so you don't cut any threads. And because you don't want to cut your threads, because then you'll have to do your piece over again. And you're just going to gently cut away from your piece. So if you want to do a shaped one, that's how you would do a shaped one. And you can see I'm just cutting away from the beads. Okay. Away from the beads. And then when you're done cutting all of that out, you would basically just glue this little piece onto another backing and then sew the backing on. I thought I was going to do 2 tutorials on this, because on just that outline, there is another one where I talk about fringe and stuff, but I will do a separate one just to finish this with you guys. Like I said, it gets to where it's too drawn out and long, and so people don't want to sit there all day and listen to me. Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry, my brain is so scrambled lately. I tend to get scrambled when I'm doing too many things at one time, so, and then I get unorganized. So this is what we were working on, and I decided to just leave it with one leaf. And I did talk about how to cut away a shape. So if you're just doing a shape, you don't really want to put leather or backing, and you're just doing the felt board and a piece of paper, you just are carefully cutting the shape out. Be careful not to cut any of your stitches, you know, because sometimes it can happen. Now, I usually, if I do a piece like this, I'll make it into something like a little hair barrette, or a little hairband. Put a little rubber band on the back of this for a hairband, and I'll show you how I do that. We're just going to cut this out really quick. and I'm carefully cutting. You can see I'm leaving a lot there because that's where your thread is. You don't want to cut into your thread, so you want to be careful not to cut into your thread. Okay. Because then you have to start over again. Okay, so here we are. This is probably going to be a donation because it's got 2 different colors of woods, but we have 2 different kinds here. Okay, so now they're both going to get backings because you don't want that to show, obviously. And so we're going to go ahead and do a leather backing for both. I've got a big thing of leather here, and I will just cut off a piece so it's more manageable for us. Okay, so when I'm using it, you can either put it on this side, glue it onto this side, and have like a felted back. And that's generally what I do, especially if it's for your hair, because this side will stick to your hair. This side is a little bit more smooth. Okay, so it's up to you. You can do it either way you want, but you don't want it to end up looking like that. So you don't want that to be on, you want it to look nice and smooth on both, sides of your piece. So okay, so we're going to use our glue, and basically I am just going to glue these on right directly onto the leather. Okay, but before we glue these directly onto the leather, we're going to get a rubber band, and you can get whatever size you want. And I like to actually sew the band onto here before I put it on here, but you don't have to. You can sew it on afterwards. It just requires you to go through, and we'll do one like that, and we'll do the other one, with we'll sew the back onto, we'll do the other one with this. Okay, so I'm going to put that on there, and I'm just going to draw it out. I'll just use a pencil. And I'm just going to shape that. I don't know if you can see it or not. I'm just using a pencil, drawing my design out. This one's going to be done a little bit differently because we're not going to be putting trim on this. I mean, you can if you want to. Some people do. I choose not to, not for something like this, because it's shaped already. Okay? And then you're just going to go ahead, cut that shape out. Like that. Doesn't have to be super perfect unless you really want it to be. Cutting the shape out. This is a thinner piece of hide. And like I said, you can get mushroom hide, or you could just use fabric. It doesn't have to be like this. But I like pleather because it is kind of waterproof. Okay, so I do want to add a hair band to this, and I will be right back. Okay, so we have hair bands here. You can get them from the grocery store, wherever you want. And okay, take that off, and you can pick out whatever color you want. It doesn't really matter. Okay, So we have hairbands here. You can pick out this size. This is, it doesn't really say what size these are really, actually, but they're smaller hairbands. And for something this big, I would do a smaller hairband. They're very stretchy as it is. It's fine. Yeah, let's see. Looks like they're taped right there. Okay. So we want to get one of these. Whoops, they're already flying off. Okay, so we want a dark blue one. And you can also get the bigger ones. Now you can see this difference in size. Like if you want to put this on a bigger one, I only have pink right now. So we're just going to do 2 of this size. And these are the ones that are melded together. You can use any of them though. Some of them have like a metal thing in there. You can use that if you want. I don't choose to. And basically what we're going to be doing now is find yourself a small strip of some kind of file, you know, some kind of cardboard. It could be like folder cardboard. Whatever cardboard you want. Let's see. Even a cereal box will do. You know, because if you have the cereal box, you know, some of that cardboard is pretty awesome from boxes as well. Okay, these. Okay, and basically all I'm going to do is just cut a little square out with a piece of cardboard. Now this is just, you know, paper cardboard that you can, printing paper cardboard, I guess. Well, any piece of cardboard. And if you want to double that up, you can. I'm not going to. And I'm just going to cut like a little round circle out. And this just is going to be for stability, okay? And basically, I'm going to glue that right onto there, just for stability. So, because this is going to be where we're going to sew right through that. So, and how do we want that? We wanted it like that. And we're just going to glue it right to the center piece of that. Okay, see that? We just glue it right there. Let it sit for a minute or two for the glue to do what it needs to do. And we'll do the same with this. And draw a line right there around your piece. Now this one is the one that we're going to be doing the trim around, and I will show you how to just do a basic trim, and then I will go through there and do a what I like to call, and I do have it on there already on one of my hair pieces, showing you how I do my lace trim. And it's basically just stacking trim on top of other trim. So, and I will show you how to do that. But I'm going to show you the basic, and then I'll show you how I do my lace around that. And that'll be... And I guess I'm just showing you how to do these things. So, I mean, all kinds of other people are doing it too, but I'm showing you how I do mine. It's to give you an idea. That way, if I ever pass away, everybody will have something of me right there. Me, how I did my items and how I did my things. I am just going to go ahead and use an empty container to trace. Now, the bigger the area, the more stability you're going to want to create. So I am going to do it like that. And basically, I'm just going to kind of go around that circle. I really want a lot of stability when it comes to a bigger piece. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but I do like to have something in between there to create a little bit of a thickness. So I'll put that in the garbage. Here's some more junk. Always try to keep your area as clean as you can. All right. Anyways, and we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to glue it on the piece. So it's pretty much covering the flower. And we're going to glue that down too. And I'm just going to put a little glue right there. Squeeze this out. Put it around in the middle area right there. Okay. We're just going to put that on top of that middle area. Make sure you press it down pretty well. And this will also hide any bumps or lumps that could happen, I guess. And now we're ready for this. So this is pretty dry now. It doesn't take long for this glue to dry. It's pretty fast. And now we are going to take that lovely leather needle that we talked about earlier. And this is the bigger one. This would be the size, I think it's the size 6. It's either the 6 or the 2. I think it's the 2. I think this one's the 2. Yeah. Okay. So and you don't have to do it with this size. You could do it with the size 6 too. It doesn't have to be with this size. And you're going to make sure you have your thimble because you're going to need to push with your thimble all this up inside there. So I'm going to go through. There we are. And I'm just going to sew this on. And usually I will sew it on where this is. So I'm going to butt that up to where the thread is, you know, and I'm going to sew on this side and on this side. And then I'll actually, so I'm just sewing each side on. Let's see. There we go. That side. Get it on there exactly right. And come back up and sew the other side down. And you're just basically sewing this to your leather. This is if you go through the rubber band itself, it's fine. Just be careful because it could, you know, shred the rubber inside of it. So we don't want to do that. And you just sew it down as many times as you feel like it needs to be sewn down. I'm just going to sew it down that. We don't want too much thread showing, and eventually those rubber bands do wear out and you will have to cut it off and put a new one on, which is not hard. I will show you how to do it the other way on here. Now normally I don't use this color thread for this, but this is what's on there. I use colored thread for when I'm doing darker pieces. Okay, and there's all kinds of different thread colors in this size D too. So I have a gray, and it's a size D, and a white, and there's black, and there's just different colors. So what we're going to do now is we're going to glue that down to this, and I am just going to put the glue on this side. Nice generous amount, and sometimes I will move it around with my finger so it doesn't squish out, and then I'll lay it down on there, and I'll push it down. Make sure the leather is popping out, you know, where you can see the leather. I don't know if you can see that. And we're going to let that sit for a minute and dry. And then we're going to do the same thing with this, except for I am not putting, you notice that it would be on this side and I would sew the thing on like I did this one. I'm showing you a different way of sewing the band on. So if this band pops off of here, you'll know how to put it on without having to do it the way I did it on there. So that's what we're doing. 2 different ways. And you can do it any way you want. I choose to do it either or. And now, which side do I want? I will do this on the lighter side. Okay. And you're just making a little medallion. Okay, so now this one we're doing a little bit different, and I'm going to go ahead and trim, because we don't want too much leather. We want just enough to where be easier to sew it, but not so much where it's going to roll it inside of itself when you're sewing. It's kind of annoying if you have to deal with too excess stuff. So we're just going to trim it. If you feel like you need to trim the front too, just to make it all nice and neat, you know, do what you need to do. What I'm doing. Okay, trim that. And now before I put my band on here, because I'm putting fringe around here, I'm going to do the fringe first. Because if I put my band on, it'll be in the way when I'm trying to do the fringe. So this one we're doing differently. This one doesn't have fringe on it. So all we're doing for this one is we're just going to sew it onto the piece itself. Okay, so we're going to start off with a knot. Trim the tail off of your knot the best you can. You know, double your thread again. We always double our thread. I always double my thread. People who don't double your thread, that's a no-no. Okay, and then we're just going to go through your leather side. Okay, you're going to bring your thread around and you're going to sew right directly through there. And you're basically sewing this on your leather back onto your front. So you can go through where the thread has been before, and that's an easier way to do stuff. So nothing happens, and I just go every 2 beads, just like before. And I'm just sewing it lightly. I don't want the needle to go so far in on this side. Okay, you want to keep it pretty close to the perimeter. Okay, because then you're going to see a lot of thread. You don't want to do that. And we don't want a lot of thread to show. So that's where the other stitch was, and I'm going to go down where the other stitch was, close to the perimeter. And then we're going to go over here and do it again, close to the perimeter. See, it's too far in now. You want to make sure it's not, and it's close to the perimeter or the edge. And then we're going to go through here and work our way up again. We want to get those corners really good. And it even pulls the fabric into the corner. And then we're going to do it again. And you're basically doing that all the way around, taking your time. and stitching your leather onto your piece. Now, some people like to add beads, and they will put the beads on the underneath and put an extra row of beads on there. I don't do that. I'm sorry. You don't have to do that, but if you want to do that, it is up to you. But if you're going underneath the beads, you can do your regular trim, or you can do just two beads, one bead, two beads. So as you go into a spot, there's less beads. As you go out to a spot, there's more beads. Sometimes you'll end up with 3 or whatever is going to look right? So okay, you can move that band out of the bay. You can see what it is about the band and sewing. So make sure that it's close to the perimeter. You don't want it to... Okay, and it even pulls that corner in when you are. And you're just basically doing this all the way around, sewing it down all the way around. Now, if you feel like you have too much of a tail somewhere, you know, don't be afraid to trim. Just watch your thread. There we go. Just watch your thread so you don't cut your thread. If you cut your thread, you have to start over again. There we are. Because you're sewing the leather down directly to your piece. This one will be a donation because it has 2 separate kinds of leaves on it. So you can see I'm just doing this and I'm bringing it up through there, and when I pull it, it will pull that all in, and I'm going right back down to that same point and close to the perimeter, and you might have to angle your needle just a bit, and it'll pull it in just like that. You can do that again where the thread is in that bead. So you can see, I don't know if you can see where the thread is in between that bead. So I'm catching inside of that a little bit. And you want to pull too tight because then you deform your design on the outside. So we just are tight enough to make sure it's secure, but loose enough to where it will now. And this is just because I'm just tacking, or you know, sewing the leather to the actual piece. So there might be somebody who does it differently than I do. I don't know, but this is the way I do it, and it turns out very nice. I'm sure there's different methods out there. I'm just getting the way I do things before, who knows, I kick the bucket or something. Someday I'll have something out there that shows people how I did some of my artwork. And that way, if they find a piece they really like, they want to know how it was done, there you go. Okay, so we're almost done. Edgy nose. Okay, so if I'm going around the tip of the leaf, sometimes I will go on this side of the bead, on top, and this side. And for some reason, this just works out so much better because it then is not going to be as loose on that piece. So I have a lot of excess leather here. And like I said, if you need to trim some of that excess leather, because there's just a little bit too much, just make sure you don't get your thread just like I almost did. Okay, so there we are. We don't want all of that. Just very delicately do that so you don't cut your thread. And I'm going where the thread meets again, going through that. And in no time at all, you become your own expert. How about that? Down in the point, so we can pull that down into there. And then we'll go over here into that first one. That way you are fortifying the stitch in that area. I don't know if you can hear my dogs or not. I have a couple Frenchies and they're kind of annoyed with me right now. What? You're not giving us attention? What's wrong with you? So I might need to give him some more of the arthritis stuff. My one Frenchie has some arthritis. He's getting old. Okay, so now we are at the beginning where we started, and we don't want our thread to come out there, so we're just going to push it back in. Going to pull it back through, and then I'm going to make the knot, and I just basically double and carefully pull through until you get a knot. And then how I hide the knot is I will find an area or a space between the threads and pull my needle through there. And if it's starting to tangle like that we don't want that. Pull my needle through there and pull it till you hear it click. And it'll go right through and you will not see where it went in or came out or anything. Then trim that off. And there's the first one. Great little hair tie for a little girl or even your own hair. And I don't need to put stuff around it. Now, or I don't, but you can if you want. It's up to you. I don't do that. Okay, so we're just going to put a new knot in there. And we are now working on, okay, I'm going to put these green beads away because we are done with these. And they can get in the way. Once upon a time, I used to just take it directly from the hank and take it off, but I kept having a problem with getting my needle caught into the threads of the hank. So I just got annoyed and decided to just not do that. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to use my darker color because it'll act like an outline. And we're going to start our trim. And we only need one needle to do it. So we're going to start our trim. And I'm going to start from the inside like that. So it's not going through all the layers. It's just going through the felt board and the outside or the opposite. And then I'm going to come back through up like that. And I'm going to go ahead, and your thread is doubled. So we're going to put the needle between those two threads and pull it up. And that way it just sticks up, just like that, because you want it to stick up, okay? And now we're going to put 3 beads on. And we're going to go through 2. We're going to, okay, first of all, before I start this, some people like me, usually I will sew this down. And here, you know what, we're just going to sew it down first, okay, because this will be easier. And if you want to take a ruler and you want to tack down where you want it to sew so it sews evenly all the way through, you can use your pencil to do it. And you want to make sure they're the same distance all the way around, okay? So if you want to put a dot all the way around to make sure every one of these are the same distance, then you're welcome. And you also want to make sure that you end on an even number. If you're doing a circle or an oval or anything that will meet. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and sew all the way around, and you're just going to sew all the way around to create that thread, to create the thing. And usually I would use my leather needle for this. Okay, I'm using this 11 or this size 12 beading needle, and that's fine too if you don't have a leather needle or cannot, you know, they don't have one available or anything, because sometimes they don't. So if you want to get it going on, so it'd be 2, 4, and you just want to make sure that you end on an even number, okay? Make sure they're spaced out about the same amount of space. And the reason for sewing it together before you put your fringe on is probably pretty obvious. Like if your fringe falls apart for some reason, because people put their things in and out of purses or in and out of whatever. If the fringe fell apart, then it would open this up too. Okay, so if you're sewing this on first and the fringe fell off, it would be still sewn together. So, I mean, that's just an extra step you can take to make sure your piece is really good and fortified, and, you know, it's not going to just fall apart. And that's what we're doing here. We're just going to fortify this piece. And so when you're doing a round piece and not a shaped piece, there's a lot of extra steps, guys. Sorry, it's traditional. You should do it like this anyway because it is better. If you don't have the extra thread and you're trying to save money on thread, that's fine. But, you know, if it does fall apart for any strange reason, then you're gonna, you know, the whole thing will come apart. So get right up. Oops. You can see why I need this thimble, right? Because I am literally pushing it through with my thimble because that's how sticky and hard it is. Okay, so we're up to this point, and I'm going to go around and I'm going to count 2 and make sure we have an even number of thread all the way around. Okay. And we're going to do 1 and 2. Okay, so that should be an even number of thread all the way around. Okay, so now we're going to go around that last stitch one more time and come up between the layers to cut that off. Okay, but we're going to put our knot in there, and you can just do it once if you want. Put a knot, tie a knot, go through those layers, and do what we did before. Pull it through and cut it. Okay? Put a new knot in your thread. Make sure you knot them both together. You know, because you want to tie the two threads together because it's double threaded. Now we're going to go up underneath that thread, and we're going to go like that underneath the thread. See it? I don't know if you can see it, but my needle's underneath that thread, and we're going to be going underneath the thread. Now I'm going to put my needle through the two of those threads and loop it to create the first piece. So now we're going to put 3 beads on. Okay, if I can get them on here. And we're going to start with 3 beads. And this is your regular trim. And you're going to go underneath the next thread. Okay. And you're going to pull it through. Okay, now create this little triangle looking thing, and you're going to go up through the bottom of that bead to lock it in. Okay, and now you're going to just do 2 because this is going to act like the 3rd bead. Okay, so you're just doing 2 underneath the thread. Okay, make your little mountain and then stick your needle underneath the bottom of that bead. Okay, underneath the bottom of that bead and lock it in. And that's what you're going to be doing all the way around. Underneath. Okay. Oops. Yeah, my stitches might be a little further apart. If you want them closer together, you put your stitches closer together, but just make sure you have an even number. And we are going all the way through. Now some people will go like this, and then they will go like put their bead under or their needle underneath there while the thread needs to be pulled still. I don't recommend doing it like this because sometimes you can fray your thread doing that. So and if you're good at not fraying your thread, that's great. But for beginners, I would definitely not want to fray the thread. The thread can fray very easily, and then you're just wasting thread, and you just end up getting frustrated, and then part of your piece is compromised because of the frayed thread that you still want to continue to use because you don't want to waste it, right? So it's better just to be, you know, make sure it's all nice before you put your needle back up through the bead. All the way through. Like that. And then put your needle back up through the bottom of the bead. And if you can look for beads that have bigger holes, that's great, because you might need to go through these beads a second time if you do. I think what we're going to do is just do this just plain fringe today. I thought I'd show you the other way, but I already have a tutorial that shows you that. So you can always go to that one. How I do my lace trim. So, and this is just your regular trim all the way around. Make sure it's not too tight or else it'll pull it in and you'll end up making a bowl. So just keep it loose. If you want it to be, if you find it's getting too tight, then maybe you don't have enough stitches, and that might be a learning experience to put more stitches in there. I just do a very loose, not too loose, but loose enough. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish it all the way around, and I will be back and show you how I connect it. Okay, I'm back, and we are at the very end of the stitch, and I think I may have changed my mind on doing the fringe. I just really want this to be fancier. So here we are at the end, and we only have the one bead to put on there. And so I'm going to look for a bead with a big hole, and I'm just going to go down through this bead. Okay, so what happens if I couldn't go down through the bead though? Because if you have a bead that has too much string going through it, or it's too tight, the hole, then you would basically do a loop around that area, okay? And you would go back down the other way. But this bead is just fine. It's going to go through there just fine. So we are connecting the two. There you go. And so I'm just going to bring this out the back side, because this is not enough thread to do a whole other thing. So we're going to bring this out the back side, and I'm going to tie my knot. Double. Make a double knot there, and you can see I have a knot, and I've got it out the back side. Now I'm going in between those layers like we did before. See those layers in between? So we're just going to bring that out of the back, and we're just going to pull it through, and you can see it just hides it right in there. Okay. Now we will, okay, so we're going to need a new needle. Is this a new one? We could use this one. We could use this one. I always have a lot of needles and thread on hand for just this, and we are just going to cut the little tail off of that. You can see it's already got a knot. We're just going to cut the little tail up to the point of the knot, not the knot itself. And this isn't really long enough either, but it's to get you started, and it's going to show you how to change out thread too at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and start that. This is what I call my lace trim, and it has 3 different layers for my lace trim. And so, you know, that's why I like pliers, because if it's a little tight but not tight enough to break the bead, then it's fine. If it's going to break the bead, then don't do it. Do something else. So we're going to go through there. And I can tell when we get to this area, I might have to do a loop, and I will show you how to do that, because and I just showed you on this part, but sometimes the beads can get awfully tight. Now let's see, how many beads do I want to put on there? I will do 5. So I put 5 beads on here, and you kind of want to gauge it. Some beads are thinner, so you might have to do 6, and so, or on less or more, and it should create a little hill. And we're skipping 1 bead and going to the next you put your 5 beads on, skip the 1 bead, go to the next. And so you have 1 bead that doesn't have, you know, and we're going to skip that one. So let's see, 5 beads. There's 4, 5, and we're going to skip this bead and go to the next and go through that bead. And you can see what it does. Okay, and you're doing that all the way around. Whoops. 5 beads, skip this bead, go to the next. Okay, and when I get to this point over here, I will be back. Okay, we're back and we're almost to the end here, and this is why we need to have a equal number of even number of beads here, because you're going to see how it meets up. So 5, we'll go skip this one, go to this one, and then 5, and we're going to skip this one and go to this one. Now this one is too tight, and you can see what's happened. It's gotten too many threads through that one little hole, and these beads for some reason have a little bit smaller hole. So what you do is, instead of going through that bead, you're going to pull your needle underneath. I don't know if you can see that. You're going to pull your needle underneath and you're going to loop it around it. You're going to loop around that needle, or that between these 2 beads, you're going to loop your thread around it, and you're going to go back up. Now, I don't know if you can see the loop or not, but you're going to go back up and you're going to do it like that. Okay? And that might mean that you go the other direction. So, and now I'm going to go, because you see I've looped it, so I'm going to have to go this direction now. And you're on to your 3rd row. So you're basically going through all your beads except for that one light blue one now, because you're up onto your 3rd row. And then you're just adding 1 bead, and you're going through all 3 of the top beads of your 5. I don't know if you can see that. And you're just pulling it like that. Now, if you want to add a little bit bigger bead, be careful about how big your bead is. But if you want to add like a little pearl bead, you could. And I would go, if you want this bead to be bigger, you could go a size 10, or you could go 1, 2, maybe even a 3 millimeter. So I would be careful about how big the bead gets, because then it starts to, but yeah, it starts to act funny. It gets too tight in there, too condensed, and it starts to frill. Okay, so we're just going through the top 3 beads on each, and I'm just adding 1 bead and then putting my needle through all 3 of the top beads like that. And it will have a little bit of looseness. You don't want it to be too tight, because if it gets too tight, then you're doing that. You're making a bowl. Okay, so we don't want to make a bowl. So if you feel like you want to put 2 tiny beads in there, you know, if you put 2 size 15s in there, that's fine. Or, you know, you want to use a bigger bead, that's fine too. This is how I do my lace trim, and then you're just going to do that all the way around your piece, the top 3 beads of your heel, and leave the bottom 2 beads. And you're just lightly putting this around. You don't need to make this super tight, just you know, a little bit of firmness is good enough. You don't have to make it super uber tight, or you'll end up with a bowl. So, because you're going around. But now you know how to deal with a bead that won't accept your string into it. If it's too tight for the string, don't do it because it'll break the bead. And you can loop your thread around an area to pull it back out, and it will be just exactly the way it needs to be. And there's another tip and trick. No, maybe 37, 38 years. So, okay. And now we're at the end. And we're just connecting the two. And we're going through the 3 like we usually do. And then I'm just going to weave my needle back down. And we're looking for the least resistant route. So that looks pretty resistant. So you might have to, go through until you find a route that's not so resistant to pulling your needle through. Okay. And so, but if you can't find a route that's least resistant, so you can see my needle is getting thinner too, so less thread. So we're going all the way down till we get to the bottom and try to pull their needle through there. Hopefully it's not too tight. There we go, because we don't want to break the bead. Okay, and then you just tie a knot, and we sandwich that knot in between the layers of leather. Just like this, you go through the layers of leather and sandwich that knot between there. There we go. And that's how I do my lace fringe. Okay, and then you're going to take another needle, because we're done with all the beading, but now we want to add the hairband itself. And so here's the hairband. And normally I would rather use a bigger one for this one because it's small. Okay, and I'm going to get my leather needle. And we are going to, we don't want too much of a tail on there, so we did double it, and we did add the knot at the end, and we're cutting off the little tail. Make sure that knot isn't going to come out. And now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find my center about right there. And I'm going to pull the needle through the center of the bead, if I can. This is why I use a leather needle, right there in the center of the bead. So now we have that going on. So you want to hide your thread with the beads. So I'm going to go down, back down, and hide my thread underneath the beads. And this is how you do this kind. So, or this is how you can do this kind, okay? And now I'm going to go back through, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to come through where you're trying to come through though, and hide it between the beads. Pull a little bit tight. Now you can do this as many times as you want, but you're going to have to be careful so the thread does not show. And you want to make sure that your thread is going between the beads so you cannot see it. So you see that? And that way it hides the thread. So you're back on this side again, and you're going to push your needle up And wherever you push your needle up, you go next to it. Okay? And you hide your thread between the beads. And you can do it again. This time, I'm going to knot my thread on the top. And then I will go back down. And I will do a double knot. Okay? Make sure it's knotted good. And then I'll go back down and hide it between the beads. And then I can cut. And that's how you can also do a replacement for this one as well. So if your band wears out, you can go right through the whole piece, okay, and put a new band on. And if you don't want to do that, you can always turn these into magnets. They're really cute as magnets as well. But this is what you got. It's pretty sturdy, pretty soft at the same time. Two different ways to do these. And this is a combination of 2-needle applique and bead embroidery. So, and fringe. We did fringe. So there you go. Okay, well, I hope everybody likes it. Please like and subscribe. And we will see you later. Bye-bye.